What does all this mean, the success of Bitcoin futures ETF? What does it mean for financial advisors that are out there who might be watching? Advisors,
Yeah,
I'm assuming they're not going to buy futures directly for clients. I'm assuming they aren't. Correct me if I'm wrong, but will they recommend Bitcoin futures, for example?
well, the huge thing, Bob, is there's a lot of demand among advisor clients. 81% of advisors are getting questions about crypto. And up until this point, there haven't been a lot of options except the individual client going on off platform to something like Coinbase or maybe Grayscale, where they can buy that themselves, where advisors not necessarily buying it for clients. Some are. But ultimately, we're looking for an ETF wrapper. We're looking for all the benefits of an ETF. We're looking for tight spreads. We're looking for lower fees. But there appears to be, at least at this point in time, a little concern about the pure volume. I mean, you know what happened to GLD when it first hit, and it hit $1 billion pretty quick. When it was $5 billion, they were so excited they couldn't believe it. And last summer, GLD was at $84 billion. Not to say that it's on this path, but boy, can you imagine if the combined marketplace is $10 billion? You know, what does that do as far as the overall structure?
Yeah. So I guess, Tom, the approval of Bitcoin futures isn't changing the narrative about a physical Bitcoin ETF. Gensler is not indicating he's going to do anything on a physical Bitcoin. There is not a high level of confidence they're going to approve physically backed ETFs this year. Is there any reason to think that has changed at all because of what has happened here?
No, I think his signaling has been clear. He's opened up this opportunity. We have to take full advantage of it. CME granting more futures contracts could be a huge help and provide some relief. And to Steve's point, welcoming other players in the space, which provides more competition. We're seeing the spreads very tight so far. The ARB mechanism is working very, very well. But, you know, we're going to continue to see demand, and advisors are going to start trickling in, because if they don't come with some type of plan to say either, look, it's not appropriate for you, or if it is, a 1% to 3% allocation over a period of time that might be dollar cost average in, they're going to have to, at this point in time, come up with some type of narrative. And it may be that they're not comfortable with the overall infrastructure of futures, but I think that whole plumbing situation is going to take care of itself. I mean, we've seen what Gensler has done and said, look, it's approved, it's not validated. We as a industry have to validate it, and I think that will be coming.
Yeah. Steve, you're in the same camp, I gather. You think the chances of a physical Bitcoin future ETF is slim to none? Is that fair to say? Until Gensler gets control over the regulatory ecosystem, or there is a clear division of labor amongst the regulatory ecosystem. Are you of the same opinion?
Yeah, I mean, look, when we started talking to the SEC and other regulators back in 2017, 2018, there was a very clear concern for custodial solutions for Bitcoin spot. And a lot of those issues have been resolved, security, safety. There's some that are better than others. There are some that are that really act and feel like real custodial solutions, like your Bank of New York's and your State Street and U.S. banks of the world. But I think the staff is still trying to get their heads around what exactly is going on with these exchanges. They're trying to put a little bit more regulatory structure around them before they say, okay, yeah, let's go ahead and move forward with this. So I don't think we see a Bitcoin spot ETF until at least middle of next year.
Yeah, my concern is that Gensler is signaling we may need a national legislation, a whole essentially new regulatory regime around crypto in general, which might require congressional approval, and Congress can't even agree on raising the debt ceiling. So this seems very far off, if in fact that is the solution, as opposed to piecemeal situations where we saw with Coinbase, where the SEC kind of encroaches or just declares certain, jurisdictional supremacy, I guess is the word. Steve, your Bitcoin futures ETF did well on Friday, but it really generated only a fraction of the volume of the ProShares ETF that launched earlier in the week. I think Van Eck is likely going to come later this week. How many more additional players are there? I have to note way down the list, Kathy Wood filed just a few weeks ago in September for a Bitcoin futures ETF.
Yeah, I don't know exactly how many there are, but I know that there's a few more that are likely to come in November, December. I think that us and Van Eck and ProShares are probably going to be the front runners here. And by the way, we're okay of having a fractional of what ProShares has. ProShares is a Goliath. We're a brand new issuer, but we also right now care more about the spread. We've been trading within a penny out there. We care more about sticking with the front month future rolls, and we also care about tracking error. Those are the things that are really going to matter in the long run. And if we can keep those things really tight in the first few weeks, then I think that we're really going to be the long-term play here.
Yeah.
Yeah, Bob. If you look at CME, a lot of eyes are going to be on CME, and approving additional futures contracts, because the moon and the stars are aligning right now for demand for crypto allocation in the advisor community. When you look at 30 years of declining interest rates and now a rising bond market, and what that does to your fixed income allocation, with inflation, with the demand for alternative investments, and the current trend in the cryptocurrency area, there's a lot of pressure on advisors to take a stake in the ground, but they've got to be confident in the vehicles that they can invest in that are on platform, and not having their clients go rogue and do something independent of their guidance.
Yeah. So if a Bitcoin physical ETF is not imminent, are there ETFs? I'm trying to think of another way to play this. Are there ETFs that can use Bitcoin futures in more creative ways? Either one of you guys. Can we do something else here if we're not going to get a physical Bitcoin ETF with the futures contracts?
Yeah. Well, not necessarily. Well, I suppose blockchain. There's a lot of blockchain ETFs that are available that are actually investing in miners. It doesn't necessarily correlate with the price. Now with futures available, I suppose they can also invest in futures. I don't know, Steve. Anything that you'd add to that?
I mean, look, the reality is the way a lot of advisors are getting access to their clients, or even institutional clients are getting access, is through private funds. That's really where the majority of Valkyrie's AUM is in private funds that we work with. So, ETFs are still a really small portion of what we do and what a lot of people are going to be doing in the future. But there are some creative ways, whether it's through mutual funds getting a small allocation to Bitcoin futures, or other ETFs that might have a small allocation to futures. I mean, I would rather have futures than, say, GBTC, right? That trades at a really big discount and could trade at an even bigger discount.
Yeah.
So,
Steve, we're seeing, Steve, institutional allocation. So on the high end, there's definitely demand, and then younger investors, Robinhood investors, are taking their swing, at the ball as well. But there's this whole middle market where financial advisors manage about $20 trillion that really don't have the best solution right now. And right now, it appears that the futures-based ETF might be that, as far as on platform. Bob, that's really where the lion's share of the demand will be coming.
Yeah. How about the DeFi markets and ETFs? Anything creative that can be done right there, right now?
I don't think so. I mean, the DeFi markets are extremely interesting. Valkyrie actually runs a DeFi hedge fund that's quite fun to run. And if I could get into the mechanics, but it's probably really boring. But I think it's going to be a really long time before you can put a DeFi type strategy on public market vehicle, right? Or even other cryptocurrencies into a public market vehicle. I think it's going to take a long time to get around. To get hands around Bitcoin before they move on to these other vehicles.
Yeah. What about other currencies? What about Steve? What about Ethereum? Like, does this open up room for the Ethereum marketplace to be able to see like products?
I think it will. So for Ethereum, the futures actually trade pretty clunky right now. So I don't think it's a good opportunity at the moment. We saw a couple of filings that were that were filed and then pulled. It's not something I'd be comfortable trading. And by the way, even Ethereum, a lot of people look at it because it's the second biggest cryptocurrency next to Bitcoin, but it's a completely different type of cryptocurrency. It's a token that essentially pays for gas on a platform, right? Think about it like your AT&T iPhone and applications that are being built on it, and then you're paying for data and you're paying for applications, which is very different than Bitcoin, which is a cryptocurrency that's used for peer-to-peer transactions.
That's why I think that blockchain and even Ethereum is so much more interesting than Bitcoin, which is essentially just a Bitcoin running off of a blockchain technology. It's just broader. Blockchain in general, DeFi is a broader issue, and I think has much more interesting applications. I have questions about Bitcoin in general, for how long it's going to last, particularly as an inflation hedge. Let me just ask you both about inflation. People keep saying, oh, we're concerned about the dollar and inflation, and Bitcoin's a hedge against inflation. Do you really think that it is? These are the same arguments that are made about gold for many years. I think gold has, there's a lot of people would argue whether or not gold has provided an effective hedge against inflation. I know, Steve, we were talking about El Salvador, it's, switching to the U.S. dollar. But what exactly does that mean? I'm not sure that's an argument for using Bitcoin as a hedge against inflation.
Yeah, well, look, if you look at gold and you zoom out a little bit, right, and you look at Bretton Woods 2 and where gold prices have gone from being pegged to $35 an ounce to where gold is today, it certainly has followed inflation, but not very correlated, right? There's been a lot of events and that's taken out the short-term correlation, but the long-term correlation has been there. I think Bitcoin has really been the same thing, except Bitcoin has also experienced this tech adoption curve. So we're still getting out of that speculative stage and getting into a more useful stage. I think we're getting close. I don't think we're there yet, but we are getting very close to that. And having countries like El Salvador and potentially other countries adopting Bitcoin as a currency that has a fixed supply that will never go up certainly helps protect smaller countries against hyperinflation.
Yeah, Bob, the number one concern among advisors in the last year has been inflation, even though the Fed has been signaling it's transitory. But really, regarding Bitcoin, it comes down to supply and demand. There's a finite number of coins that are available, and there's increasing demand, whether it's El Salvador or creating more vehicles like this that we're talking about today. There are more people that want to get Bitcoin in their hands in some way. It doesn't seem to be waning anytime soon. Right.
Tom, I know Van Eck has a Bitcoin futures ETF waiting to go. The word is it's this week. You got any, news you can give us here? Any word on when trading might begin there?
Yeah. So we saw that they did apply for an extension to go effective tomorrow. That doesn't necessarily mean it's going to happen tomorrow. But everything we're hearing is it's green light. Everything's go, and we could probably expect something within the next week, which, again, provides more offering.